Good afternoon. How are you today? So I'm going to talk about my project. So my project basically is the use of literature as a mediation tool to increase EFL vocabulary knowledge in Santo Tomas University. Okay, so my name is John Sebastian Arenas, and my director is Edith Grande. So let's start with the general question. It's very easy. To what extent does literature increase EFL vocabulary learning among students at Santo Tomas University at Florida Blanca? So basically, that's my main objective, the general question. The main objective is to analyze to what extent literature increase EFL vocabulary learning among students at Santo Tomas University in Florida Blanca through different readings and class activities. Okay, so I'm gonna use I use different literary pieces like tales and poems to check if there was any improvement in vocabulary increasing, let's say. Okay, so what were the data collection instruments that I used? The first one was a pre-test, and a post-test. Okay, so the pre-test was a very easy vocabulary test where I used some questions about a specific vocabulary, taking into consideration one story that I did. Okay, it's one story that I took from Pinch, like it was a tale. Okay, so the objectives of this test was to analyze what were the challenges they had. Yes, well, the pretest. The challenge first, the challenge they have, some of their weaknesses in vocabulary, and and so on and so forth. Now, the next one was the post test. The post test was done after the implementations were done after the implementation. Sorry. So basically, the post test was to check also if they acquired any vocabulary, if the implementations are, and if their literary pieces help them to improve their vocabulary, to enhance more vocabulary, right? In their English skills. So they had like written skills, speaking skills, um, more communicative skills, right? In the post test was done through the virtual campus that we have in Santo Tomas, and that's it. So we had a pre-test and post-test. Okay. So the other one was observations, but observation was together with a journal. So while they were doing these post implementations and the pre-test and post-test and all the things that we needed to achieve the goal, I was observing what they were doing. I was observing their emotions. I was observing all the different aspects that were important for the research, and together with the observations it was the journal. So I used the journal to portray or to write all the significant things and not so much the significant things um, about these implementations and about this project, this action research, right? So basically, I was also to collect data, basically. So I used my agenda to write all the things that I saw, the things that I experienced, and all the things that the students told me they experienced with this implementation, with this project. And finally, I did a group interview, right, where I asked the students different questions that let me understood if those implementations and if the literature that I gave them, more the literature, right, were useful to learn more vocabulary. Yes, that's it. So the sampling and characterization, I already told you, it was an English project that was with the students from English five, level five. Basically, they are like B1 level, kind of, and they were basically they were students of 12, but more or less 12 people. No, sorry, there was a group of 12 people, but not all the students went to that class, so I only took 8 of it. Right, their ages, well, it says that 17 to 35 years old, because I had in some semesters ago this range of students, but this time I had very young students, so from 16 to 25, more or less, so no more than that. Okay, so the access to sample was very easy because I worked at Santo Tomas University as teacher, as English teacher, so it was not that very complicated. I just talked to the director, and that was it. The sampling, I used the purposeful sampling technique, which according to Patton is done by selecting valuable samples that fit the project and have the profile the researchers proposes. So I took what was important for my project, right? Now, Talking about the data management procedures, my project was a mixed method project. Well, it was very very challenging because we had to do both of things, and we had to use diagrams, and we have to do literature and so on and so forth. But it was very interesting to do. So for the part of quantitative analysis, sorry, I had the vocabulary pre-test and post-test. This was the first thing that I was very useful for me, because in that part, those tests let me know if the students had the same level of vocabulary, or the same quantities of vocabulary, uh, and then how, if so, or if not so, so how these implementations and how the literature that I gave them, that I portray there, uh, help them to increase that vocabulary level, all right, and how that increasing of vocabulary level help them with their English fluency, with their English with the English acquaintance. With their English level. That's the word that I was looking for, right? So basically, this was the most important part, the vocabulary pre-test and post-test, because that's allowed me like a quantitative thing, right? Like grades, like level of students. The next one, well, the pre-test was done consisting of basically five parts. So sorry, two parts of 10 questions. It's like to connect the words with images and so on and so forth. And the post-test was very similar. Okay, well, these were the results, but I'm going to talk about the results later. This was very similar to what? To the pre-test, right? So it was just a little bit longer, and of course taking into account the vocabulary that we learned. Okay, so the qualitative analysis was very easy because I took the journal, right, and from the journal I took all the things that I wrote from it, and also the interview, right. The interview helped me to analyze what were their thoughts about that implementation and if they work or not. Some of the categories that I had. First one was memorization and mnemonic. Well, this category basically says that students learn or memorize the words not in short-term memory but in long-term memory. That's the purpose, because sometimes for example, in vocabulary, when we learn vocabulary and English, teachers mainly look for students to learn vocabulary for a short term of period. My purpose for this with this study was not to just learn from one short period, but for long term. So for that reason, I took that implementation, and then I took some time to do the post test to see if their long term memory worked with that type of implementation, with that type of literature that is interesting for them, that's catchy for them. The next one was some examples. The association words with images. This was the best, I think so, because the students could imagine the word and associated with the picture that best fit with the word. And basically all of them did very good at the beginning, not well, but after implementations they could remember, right. So this one is, it comes a lot with memorization. They could remember the words with images, so they just associate. So for example, there was one from Edgar Allan Poe that they use the word vulture, right? Which in Spanish is chulo or something like that. So they didn't know, but as soon as they read and understood within the context, and then they could associate it with the word, right? After with some images, right? This is an example of the pre-text, and this is an example of post-test where they did very good. So actually, there is the word vulture. Next was use new words in sentences. This was also very useful. Students could use the new words that they learn in sentences, which is the most important part to practice those words. So they could do it with speaking part. I give them the space to talk and to use those words, but also to write them down using stories, using telling stories, telling matching things and completing things. So this was very useful. The development of these words, providing examples. They provide examples using the new words. Okay. Okay, so here are some examples. Their story creation I talk about, and word association with the context. This was very challenging for them because, as you know, I mean, when you look at literature or poems or this type of level for example, like Edgar Allan Poe and so on, that's not very easy. Uh, for them, it was very challenging at the beginning, but then I had to help them, like look well, giving them hints, right? Also, maybe when we were in class, we were looking at this, so I used to act or sometime. But this one's was very useful too for example, when they did exams or anything like that. And okay, so what was the significance of these results according to what I told you? So this action research was very interesting to do. It was very challenging. It was very tough, but it was super interesting. And the fact that you see your students learning and you see that it's working, it's very satisfactory. So um, well, as I told you before, this was a mixed method. So the first part was like a pre-test, post-test, and then the interviews, and their journal helped me to understand how this process was going. But also, an important key was the implementations. Implementations was very important because with this implementation, I was like preparing them to know how the post-test was, and they get a lot of knowledge from those implementations, right? Here, of course, I could see the results, right? The results is like, for example, in the pre-test, they didn't do very good. So they were 80 students. From those 80 students, only four get 6 out of 10 questions. So that was basically not bad, but not good. But on the other hand, when we go to the poster result after the implementations and after the literature and after what I proposed in the research question that students are going to use literature to improve the vocabulary level, we could see there is a huge improvement, right? For example, after the post results, okay, there is a little bit of difference between the pre-test and post-test because the post-test was a little bit more longer, but the level was the same, right? So with the poster result, we could see that five students, right, got 24 questions correct out of 25, which is incredible. It's almost five, and only one got 25 out of 25. But if you see the difference between these two results from the pre-test and post-test, there is an obvious improvement in their vocabulary, right, in their results. Okay, so here we have like the 80 students, the pre-test average course correct answers. I'm talking here about correct answers, and the post-test average correct answers. So here we have 4 students out of 8, right, and got 6 out of 10, and 5 students out of 8 got 24 out of 25 correct answers in the post-test. So you see there is a huge difference here, and a huge improvement. Yes. So what they show is that this implementation, and with all the literature review that I did and all the research I did, and I say like, this is something that I've seen that it works, right? Not only in research and literature, but also in my previous lessons, because that's something that I love. I love literature. I read a lot, so that's something that I've realized that I've improved my English because of literature, because of reading. Okay, and vocabulary helps you to improve also your fluency and so on and so forth. Okay, so basically these were my research method, my instruments, and the analysis that I did. So, in conclusion, the conclusion that I have is that it works. It works a lot. It works because the students could see an improvement, and actually at the end, well, I didn't have recordings of that because I can't, right? But at the end of this implementation, at the end of everything, they told me like, teacher, that was a very interesting activity. I learned new words, new words. I think that it improves a little bit of my English. Of course, this is not like a process that, I mean, they are not going to speak like us out of the blue. This is an ongoing process. So that was my recommendation. My recommendation was that teachers need to implement those types of story. It doesn't mean that you have to do a full book, like I don't know, like a novel, but short things, short stories, short poems that are